It's much more.
We are now recording. What's going on, guys? We are going to be talking about part two of Pre-suasion by Robert Cialdini. I think it's Cialdini. I think I just have said it over and over in my head, totally wrong, and so now it's stuck like that. So Robert Cialdini, Pre-suasion part two, basically how to set up a situation to where people are more likely to say yes before you even talk to them. So whatever it is that you're doing, running your businesses, whatever the case may be, this is how to engineer a situation, how to design a situation where they're more likely to say yes. And in marketing, I like to look at marketing as versus selling. As selling is, you're talking someone in to buy, and marketing, you're creating the environment where sales happen on their own. And so what Pre-suasion is all about is 100% directly scientifically tested results that are working to improve us. So if you have your own business, if you're doing any sort of marketing, lead generation, or even making sales through marketing, this is the book for you. You need to read it. So part two, we're talking about privileged moments. The idea that there is a specific moment in time directly after something else happens where someone is more likely to say yes. So with me today, I have Julianne, who is a mother of some awesome girls. She is a leader and entrepreneur. She helps women kind of progress forward in several different areas of their life. We've got Leslie that's hopping on late right now. She is the ninja in high heels. She's awesome, social media guru. She's great. And then we have Paula, who is a mother and a wife and a grandmother and a full-time entrepreneur. She's got her internet businesses going, and we're here to discuss chapter two. So if somebody wants to cover privileged moments, I will pass it over to, let's start with Paula. Paula. He was talking about in chapter two about the concept that there's a little moment in time where someone is more likely to say yes.
Yes. So I'm looking at my notes here.
Yeah, kind of just threw you on the spot right away, huh?
I know you did. I'm not good at that. But I was looking for, I thought I wrote down what that was really called.
You what? So wait, while Paula's getting that going, I want to demonstrate something that just came to me right before we hit record on this. And so I'm going to share my screen, and I'm going to show you something. And I'm going to run this with Leslie, because Leslie hopefully hasn't really been paying that much attention. I don't know. Have you been listening in, Leslie?
Oh, put me on the spot. I don't know. We'll see what happens.
Have you been listening in at all?
I've been listening, but in and out because I was at the school.
Right. I hope that you weren't listening very well. You weren't looking, so this will work.
No, I wasn't.
So take a look at this. I'm going to Dubai soon, and this is something called Silky Power. Can you see that picture?
Yes. Oh, my God.
That is insane, all right? Look at these people up here taking selfies on this tower. Could you imagine being that high up, looking down?
That is amazing.
Do you have any fear of heights, Leslie?
I don't, but I think I would if I were there.
Do you feel a little bit of the feeling of being up that high just by looking at this stuff?
Oh, my God, yes. That's amazing.
Yeah, pretty crazy. So Paula had mentioned that she was actually getting, and I am too, some sweaty palms just looking at it. Right? Feeling a little bit nervous. And through some of the stuff that we were learning in Pre-suasion, some of the stuff that we've covered, and it may also be in a little bit later in the chapter. I read way far ahead, and now I'm like reading back to run this book club with everybody. But basically, he was talking about how certain things, even though they are not directly applied to that context, if they happen within you, they're useful in that context. So that was vague and probably didn't mean anything. But what I'm saying is that the fact that looking at those pictures makes you feel a little bit nervous and maybe your palms get a little bit sweaty, and I showed you that stuff. If then I went into my sales presentation, I think an elevated heart rate, sweaty palms, and stuff like that are also symptoms that you get when you're kind of nervous and excited to buy something, right? And so now I'm thinking of in my next sales presentation, I need to show off pictures of Selfie Tower and show some like, this is kind of scary, and I feel it in my fingers still. And like as I imagine looking down at all that stuff, I could definitely feel the adrenaline in my fingertips. And so feeling that same, excitement right before that check's going to buy, I would say that right there is a privileged moment, right? The fact that my inner body aligns with the same feelings that I would have in that other situation, my likelihood to buy went up, right? For something, and then the part that's sneaky about this, the part that's pre-suasion about this, is that I would be doing something to persuade somebody. It's before I go into the persuasion part that puts them in the attitude, right? Puts them in the section to be ready, right? That little privileged moment beforehand. So the example that he gave was, somebody called him up on the phone and he said, hey, look, I know that you were looking for a place to be and you're looking for access to a gym. I think it was a gym, maybe it was library access, something like that. And he's like, don't worry about it. Internet access. I got you hooked up, and I even got you the better internet than you were going to get originally, 100% on me. I'm just excited to have you there. And Robert on the phone is like, oh, so awesome. He was thinking, I need to write this book, literally the book Pre-suasion. And he's like, that'll be perfect. I'll have time to do that. I'm so excited. Thank you very much. And he's like, oh, well, actually, there is something you could do for me. And at that moment, that little privileged moment, right? Because he had just gotten that, basically executed that moment of reciprocity. Say, hey, look, I gave you something. There is something you could do for me, while you've asked, since I got you on the phone. And then he goes on to say, can you teach this class to these business schools? We need somebody to come in and teach this class. He's like, well, I've never done that before. First-year business students are notoriously the hardest students to teach to. All these things are against it. This is going to completely wreck my chances of writing the book. But he felt compelled. He felt like he had to. He owed him because, the guy used that little moment of persuasion beforehand, right? That privileged moment. Had he waited a little bit of time, had he called him back the next day, whatever, Robert said he would have said no. It would have been easy for him to say no. But in that little privileged moment, there was no way he could. And then I think on the last one, Leslie and I had read ahead, but we were talking about how in the when they were doing the surveys, they were going to ask surveys. They asked people, hey, could you fill out the survey? And got like a 30% response of yes. And then before asking about the survey, they asked the people, hey, do you consider yourself a helpful person? And almost everyone says yes. And then all of a sudden they go from 30% filling out the survey to over 70% filling out the survey, because people had, in that little privileged moment, said, yes, I'm a helpful person. And so they said it out loud, and because of commitment and consistency, they want to be consistent with what they said. He said it's also kind of like an idea of a chute, of a funnel. You think in your head, am I helpful? And you think back to all the memories of when you were helpful, right? Whereas if you ask somebody like, hey, you consider yourself a not helpful person, they would search all their memories for times when they weren't really all that helpful, right? Do you help strangers often? I guess not really, right? Of moments where they could have helped and said no. So I thought that was all kind of interesting. So did you find what you were going to tell us in your notes there, Paula?
Well, no, hold on a second. Maybe the chapter where you're talking about the shoots, is that not the chapter we were supposed to read?
Yes,
yeah, last week. It is. So it was the privileged moments, and then from there, which is the name of the section, and then from there he goes, not hocus, not pocus, but focus, talking about what you focus on is immediately more important at the moment that you're focusing on it. Then target shooting, CHUTING, like shoots and ladders.
Right.
And then he says, are you adventurous enough to consider a revolutionary model of influence? Like, yeah, I am adventurous enough. Oh, cool. Well, then you should buy my book, Pre-suasion. It's all about that. And then instantly I'd be more likely to buy, right? Then the other title is the do's, like payment, and don'ts of focused attention, because in the English language we are said to pay attention, which implies that there is a cost, and that's it. That is all there is to part 2.
Okay.
So yes, I think that is to answer your question, Paula.
Yeah, that's the one I took notes on, but I just wanted to make sure.
Okay. Yeah. So of what we've covered so far, Julianne, did you see anything there that you immediately could apply to your business or what you're doing?
Well, yeah, I mean, I think it's funny, I mean, I've been in sales most of my life, and psychology is sales. I mean, like everything in life is psychology, by the way, but especially like, whatever you do. But really sales is very psychology. And that's what he's really talking about, is basically what you want to do is that you give reciprocity. So that's what he's doing. The guy gives him something that will make his life better, will make him feel happier. And all of a sudden, because he's happy and his feelings inside of himself and his body, kind of what you were saying earlier about the height thing, right? Your body, the energy and the flow or the feelings inside your body change. So now you're invested, because not only are you psychologically invested, you're kind of physically and emotionally invested. And now all of a sudden when someone asks something of you, it's like, wait, how can I say no? Because it's almost like I now feel obligated and committed, what you said, to actually give back to you. And that's a big part of sales. I mean, when you look at anything, whether it's like, hey, you walk down, say, in the airport, and they say, hey, if you sign up for this MasterCard, we'll give you, $200 gift certificate or something. Or, you're on Alaska Airlines or any airlines, and at the end of it, they say, hey, if you sign up for this Visa card, you'll get 30,000 miles free, right? So there's people out there who are like, oh yeah, whatever, I hear that every day, who won't listen to that, right? But there's a lot of people out there who actually go, oh, wait, wow, 30,000 miles. I'm not going to get that unless I sign up today. And all of a sudden they start like getting excited because they think of all the trips they're going to go on now that they wouldn't have been able to go on before. And so it sells them, Or actually a really good example is we have an REI opening on Friday, right? And so I was laughing because my boyfriend's mom was here yesterday for dinner, and then her friend, and they're really excited to go to REI. And so I'm reading about it, and I'm like, oh, well, you get a chance to win like $10 gift certificate or $10 like gift cards, or like $50 or $100. And for me, I'm like, whatever, I don't really care. They're like, oh my God, we got to be the first 200 people. Oh my God, I get to get a gift card. I'm like, what? But it's like, that's a normal, natural, because for me, I have a master's in psychology, and like I also did a lot of sales. For me, I kind of blow that stuff off because I understand the psychological principle behind it. But for them, and for the average person, I think they go, oh my God, I'm so excited, I want to go. And it's that privileged moment, right?
He did mention about that, about how it only works to the extent that somebody doesn't see it as a tactic. Mm-hmm. And so when you recognize it as a tactic, it works less well on you, or possibly not at all, right? Or so, the chances of it working are diminished extremely. So when somebody sees it as a tactic, that they're using it against you, not doing something for you, mm-hmm. right? Then it's a little bit different. I guess in the old book, Influence, he was talking about the Hare Krishnas giving out flowers. Mm-hmm. Right? They give out flowers. And Dave was talking about, he had the same thing happen to him, but it was a book. They gave him a book. And then as soon as they gave him the book, he kind of, went on to his little sales pitch of how much money he should be giving him, because he gave him that gift, right? And then expected something in return right away. But Dave felt compelled and gave him the $20 anyway.
Well, yeah, it's like we were in Seattle, I don't know, a couple of months ago, and we're downtown, and there's a lot of, right now there's a lot of cruise ships that come through here for Alaska during the summer. And so it's very busy. And there's, I'm not really sure exactly what Christian, I mean, I think it may be their Buddhism or something. I'm not for sure, but they're dressed, and they're handing out these, like, I can't remember exactly, like silver dollars or something like that. It's not real dollars, but something fake, and it looks very pretty. And so they want you to grab it, so you feel obligated, because as soon as you grab it, they say, okay, well, can I have a donation, please, right? Mm-hmm. Same thing as what they were doing. For me, I look at them like, no, thank you. But there are so many people that were actually taking it and all of a sudden giving them money. I was like, what?
Well, as soon as if you don't feel like it's a tactic, if you don't feel like it's something that they're doing to you, then you're like, oh, yeah, I would love that. Thank you very much. And then in that privileged moment right there, they're able to make their request and get a higher compliance on it. Yeah. No, that's interesting. He was calling it, what was it called? Positive. Well, the on the other one, it was the positive test strategy. Is that what it was called? Positive. Do you remember? Leslie, do you remember? I think it was positive test strategy.
Positive. I wrote that down. Positive test strategy.
Yeah.
Yeah.
What did you, and what was that?
Well, I was just going to say, that's what they do when they are talking about the cults. Like they ask you that one question, are you unhappy? Mm-hmm. Because they automatically want you to say yes, so they can show you their way. They can pull you into their cult and just feed on that.
Yeah. Yeah. So like he originally thought that it was just a way of filtering out the people who don't feel like they're unhappy. But then he realized this is actually also a recruiting tactic because it's positive test strategy where it's got you searching for times that you were unhappy. And then all of a sudden you found all this evidence. You're like, well, yeah, I am kind of unhappy, kind of angry, you know? And when I would read that, I immediately thought about, okay, so when I'm creating capture pages, it's often useful to do what's called like a two-step opt-in to get micro commitments from people first. And so a micro commitment would be something that's really simple. Because if I'm asking for right up front, hey, if you're interested in this, give me your name, your last name, your email address and your phone number, and then we'll follow up. All of a sudden there's like all this information, all these things that they have to do before they can get to the next step. They're less likely to do it. But if I start with if I start with a question, like one of the famous capture pages that's converted real high was, it asked, where did you first hear about this? It's like Facebook, so, social media, email, word of mouth, other, whatever. So somebody's like, okay, they do something first, right? They say, oh, I found this on Facebook first. So that's step one, right? And then it got this little micro commitment. It got them to click something. That's it. Didn't ask them for anything more. They didn't have to type anything. All they had to do was click something. And then step two was saying, put in your email address. And then all of a sudden, more people are putting their email address because before it asked for the email, it got them to click. So it got a little micro commitment, just like somebody being pot committed. They said, well, I'm already in this much. I might as well put my email address in. They've already done something, so they'll just continue doing things. And so I'm like, all right, well, instead of asking something arbitrary, like, did you hear about this on Facebook or YouTube or whatever, say, something that he said that was kind of interesting. Of all the people he asked, are you an adventurous person? Over 97% of them said yes. So obviously not 97% of people are considered adventurous, but in a moment of asking, almost everyone says that they're adventurous. And so if you ask something where almost everyone is going to say yes to it, but it's getting them to like, are you an open-minded person?
Uh-huh.
Okay. How many people do you know that would say no to that? Right. And obviously, so now they're thinking, okay, yeah, I'm an open-minded person. Are you an open-minded person that would be likely to take advantage of a good opportunity if one was presented? I mean, now you've got them saying yes. You've got them thinking and already committing like to themselves internally. I mean, also externally, but since it's on the internet, it doesn't really feel it's the same as them saying it to you. But they're committing that, yes, I am kind of an open-minded person. I am somebody that would take advantage of an opportunity that seemed like it would, do me well. So now you got a yes out of them, and you've got them thinking about times that, agreeing that they're an open-minded kind of person. And then with that say, okay, well, pop your email address in here to see what it's about. And so because they've done the micro commitment first, they're more likely to put their email in. But because they've also registered themselves as an open-minded person, I'd imagine they're also more likely to take whatever you put in your sales process, right? Your sales, to take that as with an open mind, to see that with an open mind. So that was immediately what I got out of it. I'm like, oh, that's genius. I'm going to rephrase those things. I'm not asking if they saw this from Facebook, right? I don't care about that information. But if I can start with that, go down that chute, that positive test strategy, where I know they're going to say yes, and what they're agreeing to is the characteristic that I would like them to have, right? One that would make them more likely to say yes to what I show them next. Genius. And I saw that and I was like, this is gold. I'm fired up for part 3. So Leslie, Julianne, Paula, I think we've gone on for a little bit. We kind of covered, this was a pretty short chapter. And so we covered a good amount of it here. I think I'd say we kind of pretty much covered all of it. Did anybody have any last thoughts? Let's start with Leslie.
I think I was along the line you were when we talked about adventurous. I just started thinking about all of those little things that people like to fill out on Facebook every Friday night, those surveys. Are you like Yoda? Or, are you Luke Skywalker? With Star Wars coming out, that kind of thing. I started thinking of all these quick little surveys I could do that could maybe pre-frame them, persuade them into saying yes to a business opportunity. Because everybody wants to be Yoda or somebody, I thought it was so cute. Because they all have aspects that we could use. So that's kind of where I went with my little head. What could I do that would make people want to take a survey? That would be fun.
Design kind of a quiz to see which personal development guru they're most like. And then at the end, like, well, you know what Bob Proctor would really love? Check this out. Like, you're like Bob Proctor. Yeah.
That's a good idea. That's a good idea.
That is.
Interesting. All right, Julianne.
Gosh, I feel like I've said so much already.
Yeah,
so. You don't want to hear me talk anymore.
No, okay, fine. Well, we do value your time. I appreciate your input, and I love having you here. You're awesome.
Thank you. That means a lot. So I think that's another thing. Actually, what you said, Leslie, I always get like totally pulled into those things. Oh, you know, it's more like for me, it's like, what's your lifetime quote? I mean, it's like, I'm like, oh, I want to know my lifetime quote. Like, come on. That makes no sense.
Those silly little things that people do on the weekends when they're downtime, right?
I think that's a great idea, actually. You know, and if you look at they have like, I don't know, 2.1 million likes or something. So I'm like, oh my gosh, that's fast.
Right? So that's what I thought yesterday when I was reading that. But it didn't come till the second time. So I highly encourage people to read a book not once, but 2 to 3 times, because it really comes the second or the third time where you really get your great ideas. Because the first time you're just kind of absorbing. It's the second or third time that I read or hear something that I get really great ideas.
I love it. Yeah. Adult learning theory. Read it 3 to 5 times to absorb 50% of the information, and then hop on something like this where you can talk about it and teach what you're learning to absorb 80% of it. All right. So it's your turn to do that now, Balla.
Well, listen, we didn't talk about, which is something that I found a little fascinating. It's something that I wrote down. It talked about how we choose what track we want to focus on and how we can rapidly alternate where our focus is going. It's like a half a second, it said, of a mental dead spot. And I thought that was kind of interesting. That's how I was thinking about that. I was like, oh, because I'm usually doing 3 or 4 things during the day. And I'm like, oh gosh. And it's true. It's like it takes just a half a second to like focus yourself somewhere else. Mm-hmm. And now all of a sudden you're going down this other track.
Yeah. Yeah. Productivity tip. Don't do that. Yeah. Don't multitask.
No, exactly.
Yeah. If you want to be more productive, don't multitask. If you love multitasking more than productivity, then keep multitasking.
Yeah. But I just thought it was interesting how our brain does that.
Yeah. I feel like everybody likes to resist that too, because multitasking is so attractive. Everyone loves to multitask. You know, it's fun almost, and you feel, I don't know, I guess you're more entertained because there's more going on. At the moment, this is no longer novel. You're no longer fired up excited about what's going on here. You're doing this also. And so it's like harder to be bored maybe. And we're so starved for something to keep us entertained all the time. You know, you're just in this motion of doing everything all at once, you know, and whereas if you did one, then the other, then the other, then the other, it would happen faster, or maybe better, or, you know, in some ways you wouldn't have that loss of time, loss of when you shift over. And for me, loss of doing it all together. I'll start it and then get it, you know, the moment it's not super, super inspiring and exciting and I'm doing something else at the same time, this is gone and then possibly forgotten forever. That's just how weird my brain is. So cool. That's awesome. Thank you guys for watching. Below this video, we got a spot where you can hop in and you can jump in on our next book club meeting. If we're not on this book anymore, we may be on a different one. So you can click in and check that out. I should also have some links to the upcoming one, which we're going to do in 1 week. Should have a few more people on there. And I think we may change the time because this time's not really working for everybody. But anyway, thanks for watching. Check out the links below, and I'll see you on the next video.